Hello everyone, my name is Ilya Maximets. I work in Red Hat, and this talk is about debugging OVSDB or simply any other OVN component with stream record replay. Let's take a quick look at the OVN architecture. So here we have several hypervisors, several OVN controller processes, OVN NorthD, and two databases, southbound and northbound, served by OVSDB servers. How to debug issues with OVN components? What are the main approaches we could take here? First, most obvious one is a live debug session on an affected setup. It has some advantages that you actually have access to all the data, all the dumps, all the flows. The downside is that you have to debug on a real cluster and you have to debug on several nodes at the same time. And this setup is usually not available for a really long amount of time. The second approach is just to copy database files from the affected setup and try to replicate in a sandbox. This is convenient because OVN actually mostly needs only information stored in databases. You can use OVS Sandbox to test what's going on with NorthD, for example, or databases themselves, or spin up OVN fake multi-node cluster and test more complex scenarios there. But even though this is convenient, it has some disadvantages that you might need exact special order of database operations or specific events like disconnections to happen in order to reproduce the issue. And it might not be easy to replicate needed conditions in sandbox environment. So let's get back to OVN architecture and look at connections that we have. Basically, every single component, every single OVN component connects to some other component with SSL or Unix domain socket or TCP. If you will take a look closer to Southbound DB, for example, we will notice a single process with decent amount of inbound and outbound connections. So do we really need to have full OVN setup in order to test it? One thing that appears in mind that all we need is to have these incoming connections with particular data on them. But how to simulate that? Let's take a look at how connections are implemented. All connections in OVS and OVN applications works via stream library. And all variants of stream connections, SSL, Unix, TCP, implements same stream provider API, so they could be transparently replaced with special implementation. That's exactly what stream replay is. It's another implementation of stream provider API that does some magic for us. If process started with special argument stream replay record, modified version of stream library copies all the data, all the incoming data from all the connections and stores on disk. And if process started with stream replay, stream library actually doesn't establish any connection, it only reads data from disk. This way we could have completely standalone testing environment because replay doesn't need any other connection except for files on the local disk. What is available now? There is a patch set on the mailing list with first implementation. Work on second version of this patch set is in progress. Current implementations are that we have to disable some randomness in OVSDB server. This is needed because we have to have exactly same UUIDs generated by OVSDB server, so they could match with what is stored in the replay file. And the second big limitation is it currently doesn't work with internally generated time-based events. For example, inactivity probes in OVSDB server could be or could not be triggered during a real-world run, and also could be or could not be triggered during replay. So it's hard to detect. This limitation actually doesn't allow us to run OVSDB server in raft mode, since raft heavily depends on time. For the use cases of this functionality, the first is offline debugging. You could record on real setup and replay and debug locally. During replay, it's possible to attach debugger, change log levels, or even modify the binary, adding some new logs. You could, if you are able to fix the issue, you could test with replay and check that behavior changed. The second is a standalone performance test. If you are working on a pure performance optimizations that doesn't affect in-out traffic from the process, you could just record real-world workload that you're interested in and replay without any latencies between messages. In this case, the total time spent processing this replay is your performance metric. And also offline debug of rarely reproducible issues. You only need to record once and have it 100% reproducible in replay after that. For the future improvements, it's just an elimination of existing limitations. It's a recording of generated UUIDs, so we could return randomness, and correct work with internal time-based events to allow recording of raft clusters. Thank you.